I'm just kind of ready for the next chapter and a new challenge in my life. But I think the reason I decided to announce it when I did was I'm just kind of ready for the next chapter.
The world
and a
of
new
Caitlin
challenge in my
Clark
life,
abruptly
but I think the
shifted.
reason I decided
And
to
it all
announce it
began
when I
when
did was
Lexie
just
Hull
have
and
that
Michael
exposure.
Jordan entered the room in a moment filled with astonishment and emotion. The rising talent and basketball great disclosed an incredible $52 million Nike agreement that was exclusively for Clark. Her gaze expanded. The audience fell silent. Fans will never forget the response that followed. However, why did Hull and Jordan take this action at this time? What are the implications of this historic agreement for Caitlin, Nike, and women's sports going forward? A phenomenon's ascent. Caitlin Clark had already repeatedly altered history long before the 2024 WNBA draft came and went. She was more than just a superb athlete. The player was her, the beating heart of college basketball for women. Caitlin made routine games into major events starting in her debut season with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Something electrifying happened each time she on the court remained 3 steps away from the arc. Even the most experienced analysts stopped and stared as the laser moved through narrow channels with such assurance. By the beginning of 2024, something noteworthy had occurred. In addition to being well-known in every American home, Caitlin Clark's fame has started to spread over other countries. Hours before tip-off, crowds waited in queue to see her warming up. Every time her jersey was seen on TV, the ratings skyrocketed. In reality, in terms of attendance and ticket sales, a number of Caitlin's collegiate games surpassed NBA games during the 2023 to 2024 season. She created a movement rather than merely attracting fans. She has incredible stats. Caitlin Clark broke the NCAA's all-time scoring record in March 2024 inside the thunderous walls of Carver Hawkeye Arena in Iowa City, outscoring all previous male and female players. The Globe didn't simply pay attention.
It was still for a while.
ESPN provided exclusive coverage. Instant features were introduced by international networks. Her image appeared on digital billboards in Tokyo and cereal boxes in the Midwest. College basketball was no longer the only aspect of this. Caitlin Clark had achieved international fame. Thus, it wasn't a matter of whether she would be selected first on the evening of the WNBA draft on April 15, 2024. It was the speed at which the Indiana Fever would leap to the call. And when they did, it felt more like a coronation than a draft in front of a boisterous audience in Brooklyn, New York. Legends nodded their agreement as the crowd surged and cameras flashed. What transpired next, though? The plot really takes a turn at that point, because 2 legendary names came forward in a moment that astounded both fans and insiders. The basketball kingmaker himself, Michael Jordan, and Lexie Hull, a rising WNBA star. Together, they unveiled an unexpected alliance that nobody had anticipated. Nike was making Caitlin Clark an incredible $52 million offer for a whole business centered around her life, her fashion sense, and her relentless ascent, not just shoes or branding. The sports world was rocked by what had started as a whisper regarding her future, and Caitlin Clark's face, captured on camera, told it all at that precise moment. Surprise, thankfulness, and victory. But there's more going on here than just that eye-catching deal. A tale of legacy, timing, and how Lexie Hull and Michael Jordan supported a revolution rather than just a player. What occurs, though, if Michael Jordan and Lexie Hull spark a revolution rather than merely a transaction? To discover out, stay in touch. The bidding battle that rocked women's athletics. Caitlin Clark was more than just a basketball sensation by the time she arrived in Brooklyn for the 2024 WNBA draft. She was a phenomenon in marketing. Corporate behemoths with billion-dollar eyes were already watching every shot she made, every post-game interview she gave, and every stride she took while wearing trainers. Her ascent had not only thrilled admirers. The entire power of the worldwide endorsement machine had been roused. The fight to sign Caitlin Clark was intense, global, and took place in boardrooms all around the world. Rumors of significant endorsement offers started to circulate behind the scenes in early March 2024. Adidas, Puma, Nike, and Under Armour all entered the market to lock down the most powerful lady in basketball, not merely to sign a player. Every brand was aware of the stakes. Caitlin Clark was more than just a symbol of outstanding athleticism. She stood for a new age of market dominance, fandom, and exposure in women's sports. Under Armour entered quickly and forcefully. According to reports that were leaked from its headquarters in Baltimore, the offer was alluring. $16 million spread over 4 years, along with the possibility of a trademark shoe, uncommon for female athletes of any caliber. That was sufficient to garner media attention. Adidas then made a silent, but well-thought-out bid. $6 million spread throughout 4 years. And another item that caught people's attention, a sneaker prototype that was previously created with Caitlin's style in mind. Puma also dabbled on the concept. However, they withdrew from the race when the stakes and numbers swelled. Things had changed from normal. It was war. Nike then made a move as everyone held their breath. It wasn't merely an agreement. A thunderclap struck. 3 days after Caitlin was selected first overall by the Indiana Fever in April 2024, Nike made a game-altering offer that smashed all other offers, including an 8-year contract with a reported base salary of $28 million. However, it didn't end there. Performance bonuses, brand royalties, and worldwide activations would raise the agreement's value to an astounding $52 million, according to insiders familiar with the transaction. Nike didn't stop there either. To cement the deal, they summoned 2 strong armies. The legendary Michael Jordan, whose jumpsuit brand revolutionized the basketball industry, and Lexie Hull, a rising WNBA star and shrewd supporter of equity in the game. Together, they gave Clark a legacy rather than just a deal. Caitlin Clark entered what she believed to be a casual Nike brand meeting at a private event in Los Angeles. Rather, Jordan himself greeted her, holding a sleek black box bearing her initials and Lexie Hull at his side. Her first signature prototype is within. The instant she realized what was occurring was captured on camera. Her hand shot to her face as her eyes widened and her incredulity turned to tears. And the torch was formally passed at that precise moment. What, then, caused Caitlin Clark to sob in shock when legends handed her the torch.
Keep an eye out.
This is something you won't want to miss. The autograph that made all the difference. Sleek, striking, and bearing her name, Caitlin Clark's first signature shoe was unboxed. For her, it was more than just a milestone. Decades of sports history were reverberated by that moment. There hasn't been a partnership this significant in the globe since 1984, when a young Michael Jordan inked a historic contract with Nike. However, performance wasn't the only factor this time. It was about promise, strength, and women's sports future. Days after her Brooklyn WNBA draft moment, the announcement was made. Not only was Nike's offer of $52 million unprecedented, it contained an even more uncommon item, a distinctive shoe collection based only on Caitlin Clark's persona and sense of style. She became just the 3rd WNBA player in history to be granted this distinction. What's even more amazing is that she was the first to get it at this early stage of her career. A daring wager is at the heart of it all. Nike was not merely acquiring a player. They were making an investment in a cause. One that started with crowded college stadiums and broken scoring records before developing into a complete commercial conglomerate. With a few significant exceptions, it was a contemporary take on the Jordan blueprint. Nike offered more than just a salary when they gambled on Michael Jordan, a dynamic rookie, back in 1984. Royalties, or a portion of each pair of Air Jordans sold, were part of Jordan's contract. Everything changed because of that detail. It enabled him to develop as a brand in addition to an athlete. MJ makes tens of millions of dollars a year from Air Jordan, which is now a multi-billion-dollar company. Not only did that initial contract change Nike, but it also permanently altered sports marketing. In contrast, Caitlin Clark's arrangement is far larger in scope, but differs in form. Although she receives her own shoe, the contract does not, at least not yet, involve royalties on sales, according to people familiar with the negotiations. This indicates that even though Clark's name, image, and likeness support the brand, Nike still controls the earnings. Some people didn't like that particular detail. Caitlin's fast rise was publicly lauded by Sonny Vaccaro, the same former Nike executive who assisted in signing Michael Jordan in the 1980s, who referred to her as one of the most significant athletes of this generation. However, he also expressed his disappointment openly. She ought to have received the whole Jordan treatment from them. In late April 2024, he informed reporters, "She is the one who deserves to take responsibility for their legacy." The visual impression was indisputable, even though the fine print generated controversy. At a Nike event in Los Angeles in late April, Caitlin stood on stage with her signature sneaker in hand alongside WNBA player Lexie Hull and Michael Jordan, who had both worked internally to strengthen Clark's position. As crowds yelled and cameras flashed, it became evident that this was more than simply a bargain. It was a proclamation. However, how did Caitlin Clark's Nike endorsement become a daring statement for women's sports? Find out the true implications of Caitlin Clark's Nike agreement for women's sports by watching. In April 2024, Sunny Vaccaro, who was instrumental in making Michael Jordan a worldwide celebrity, made a statement that had an impact beyond sneaker culture. They set the whole sports sector on fire. Caitlin Clark was not being criticized by Vaccaro. He was giving her ferocious praise. He stated at a Los Angeles media roundtable that she ought to have received royalties or shares in addition to the check. She is changing culture in addition to selling shoes. And arguing with him is difficult. Caitlin Clark has already surpassed the majority of endorsement veterans at the age of just 22. Social media was filled with her highlights. Ratings were pulled by her name. Even before she participated in a WNBA game, her jersey sales broke records. Even while Nike's $52 million pact was a significant step forward for female athletes, Vaccaro maintained that it still didn't match the groundbreaking paradigm he and Jordan helped create in 1984.